President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to our eFolder Partner Chat Series. This webinar brings together industry leaders and eFolder partners for business-oriented discussions. Today's topic is 7 lessons I learned from my IT business. Today we are joined by Andrew Moon of Orange Nomad. Before we go through the agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who registered for the event. With over 200 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it on your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout. We've planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit them as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. Today's presentation follows a logical flow. I will introduce our special guest, Andrew Moon, who will walk us through walk us through the story of building and growing his own IT business and the one thing you need to know as an MSP. Andrew will then walk us through the 7 lessons he learned through his IT business. We will then go into an interactive Q&A discussion. Now let me introduce Andrew. Andrew is a serial entrepreneur who has launched and run several successful businesses of his own since the age of 8. He is the founder of Orange Nomad, a unique business consultancy that takes a progressive approach to educating small businesses and entrepreneurs on all things digital. Andrew is also the author of Insider Technology Secrets that will make your business run better and more profitably. Andrew's goal is to guide small businesses in implementing their business vision while aligning their digital strategy to meet that mission. Andrew, thanks for joining us today and welcome.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate you having me on the show today.
Okay, great. So I'm giving you keyboard and mouse control, so you should be able to page through. Give that a go.
All right, perfect. Well, first off, I just want to thank you guys for having me on the show. I appreciate everybody dialing in today to listen to the webinar and hear my story of what I learned over the last 10 years of running my MSP. Thanks for the introduction. That was the official introduction. I'll give you the short version. I don't feel that I'm a rock star, guru, ninja, whatever the cool term that everybody uses these days to call themselves. I think of myself as an ordinary guy. I love technology. I love helping small businesses effectively use technology. So just like most of the guys on the call, guys and gals on the call today. Just to give you a little bit of back history of who I am. Some people, probably have no idea who that guy is in the picture there with the really bad haircut. I was born with that haircut. Just a quick backstory on my history. I come from a family of 6 in a steel town in the northern panhandle of West Virginia, so if anybody's got a good redneck joke, I'd love to hear one, because I've probably heard a lot of them. I started out as an entrepreneur at age 8. I had an older brother, 2 older cousins. I was pretty much always dabbling in some type of side business to make money. The last 22 years or so, I've been involved in the IT industry. I started Network Logics back in 2004 as a pure play MSP. So we were, an MSP right from the very go. So I'll get a little bit of the history to go through the presentation today is how I got started, some of the things that I learned. As you can tell from the picture there, a couple things I'm passionate about. One's the color orange, and I also love cars and technology. So pretty much most of my adult life has been around cars and technology. So picked up the color orange, I would say probably about 12 years ago. I love the color orange, so if you guys meet me in person, you'll see pretty much everything I have has some taint of orange to it. So yeah, I definitely would welcome questions as we go along. I just want to be able to give my story as to what I learned over the last 10 years in business, specifically rather to the MSP market, but also just the things that I've learned in startups, entrepreneurs, the things that I've seen in the market over the last 20 plus years. I'm happy to share that. I'm happy to give back to the community. See if we can advance the slide here. All right, perfect. So I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory. Most of us on the call today are entrepreneurs. We started a business for a reason, and the big reason is, as you can see on the slide here, entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. And that's really, for me, why I started Network Logics. I got back into IT back in 2004. I wanted to be an entrepreneur again. I wanted to solve the problem that I saw in the market, which was a lack of qualified IT for small business here in the Columbus market. And again, the chance to be my own boss. That was my dream. I was living the dream. That for me is what drives me and has always driven me, as being an entrepreneur. Way back to age 8. Let me get this to work here. All right, perfect. Like every other entrepreneur who starts his own business, we all want to have the best customer service possible. That's our goal. That's our dream. I started with my first client back in 2004, through word of mouth, and that's what I focused on. I wanted our customer service to rock. I always gave service with a smile. The typical thing that we do as entrepreneurs is everything revolves around customer service. And when you're in the startup mode, everybody looks good as a client. Pretty much, I did what most entrepreneurs do. Anybody who wrote me a check became a client, because I wanted to be the best IT provider in Central Ohio and beyond. That was my goal. That was my dream. And I'm sure everybody on the call today can empathize with me there on, wanting that to be our focus. Unfortunately for me, like most other entrepreneurs, one too many, things started to get complicated as we grew. One client became 2, became 3. Things got real complicated as we started to grow. I now had to manage multiple hats. I now had to be tech support, sales and marketing, accounting, all the normal things that we as entrepreneurs do that really complicates life. But for me, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to be. So it was okay. It was okay when we first started. But as we got more clients, as we got more employees, as more contractors, more vendors, I began to have the same frustrations that most people on the call today. Not enough time, not enough money, not trying to find the right people, trying to find a work-life balance, and then obviously trying to scale a company is sales, is trying to find more clients to add to our pool. Pretty soon, though, this is what daily life pretty much became for me. Those challenges are nonstop, and I think a lot of people can empathize with me. And since I sold Network Logics last year and am now consulting for other MSPs and entrepreneurs, this is a recurring theme that I hear all the time, is it just seems like I'm putting out one fire after another after another. The challenges just never stop. I remember playing this game, Whack-A-Mole. Some people probably heard of it. Growing up outside, about an hour out of Pittsburgh, the first time I played Whack-A-Mole was at Kennywood Park. I remember it vividly. And it was pretty awesome when you first play the game. The moles pop up, you hit them down, and you just keep going. Fast and furious. And when you're a kid, that's great. You can go to your heart's content. Unfortunately, when you're an adult trying to run a business, playing Whack-A-Mole every day, soon it got old very fast. It seemed like I was putting out, that's all I was doing all day long, was putting out one fire after another, after another, after another, and having the constant distractions that come with running a business and being connected 24/7. Pretty soon, though, I ended up like this. I wish I could take a picture of myself. That's obvious stock photo. But saying yes to everybody and trying to be all things to everybody, it very much caught up with me a few years back, and I'm actually still paying for some of the ramifications of abusing my body over the last 10, 11 years. for me, it was 24/7. I live, sleep, eat, breathe, sleep, dream about my business and solving problems. So it became 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. That was pretty common. Being able to sleep, it eluded me the last few years, especially. Even with Ambien, I was lucky if I got 4 hours of sleep a night. Couldn't concentrate. I was pretty much, I was a mess of stress. And that strategy of saying yes to everybody finally caught up with me a few years back. And again, like I said, I'm still paying for it physically of maintaining that pace. So I'm hoping that some of the things that I'm able to share today can help prevent people from going through what I went through. That's really my main goal, is to help you bypass some of the things that I went through, some of the struggles that I had, and really kind of fast track you to some of the things. They say hindsight's 20/20. Looking back, we always have the right answers of what we should have, could have, would have done. So I'm hoping that I can at least share some of those things so somebody on the call doesn't end up looking like that or worse. A couple years ago, I made one decision that really, people always ask me, what's the one thing that I can do to grow my business? What's the one thing I can do as an entrepreneur? What's the one thing I can do as an MSP to be successful? I'm going to share with you the thing that I think, looking back, really allowed me to turn the corner, change things around, and really escalate me to the point that I was able to consistently grow my business, eventually sell my business, and allow me to do what I'm doing right now, which is helping people, helping not just MSPs, but other entrepreneurs as well. I'm going to share with you now the one thing that I think, again, changed for me. Now, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one of the things that really stuck out in that book for me was the idea of a mastermind, having others to collaborate with as an entrepreneur. And this line from that book really was the one that I take away to this day. Deliberately seek the company of people who influence you to think and act on building your life you desire. So a few years back, that's what I started to do. I started to look for a mastermind group, other entrepreneurs, other MSPs, just something that I could reach out to that it will allow me to escalate and refocus myself, my business, both professionally and personally. And I found that a few years back. Some of you on the call today may be familiar with Robin Robbins. I can honestly say back in 2012, the decision to join Producers Club, I'd been around Robbins since about 08, 09, had her marketing, and I did pretty much what everybody else did with the marketing kit. It sat on a shelf collecting dust. But I made the decision in 2012 to change that. I signed up for Producers Club in 2012 right at boot camp, and that's when really the mindset changed for me, is that allowed me to take a different daily track of my business, of my life, and have the thing that we as entrepreneurs tend to shy away from, is accountability. Let's face it, we're in business so we don't have people to tell us what to do all day. Unfortunately, most times that's what we need. We need somebody to give us that swift kick in the butt, to take us to the next level, to hold us accountable, and really take us out of that box that we tend to pin ourselves in as entrepreneurs. That very first year, the things that I learned and the people that I was introduced to and the quarterly meetings that we had in Nashville allowed me to get out of my business and to work on my business instead of working in my business every day. Because I was like most everybody else that's on the call today, where you're just struggling from day to day and you're running a tech business. And that's the thing that she really taught me, was the difference between a real business and a tech business. A tech business is something that's tedious, exhausting, chaotic, and hard, and that's pretty much what I was running on a day-to-day basis. She taught me how to run a real business. which was rewarding, easy, attractive, and lucrative. And that's what I wanted. And meeting people such as Anito Cobain, and one of the biggest influences for me personally was Mike Michalowicz. And I'll get in to share some of the things that I learned from Mike, not only at Producers Club, but through his books. And those were game changer things inside my business that I learned that allowed me to just flip my business on, pretty much on its head, starting in 2012. And I'll share some of the things that with you that allowed me to attract others and to finally be able to sell my business. So I'll share with you those things that make you attractive if you're interested in selling your business. That first year in 2012, with that coaching and accountability, I was part of an accountability group. Basically, it's a separate group inside Robin Robbins that we met once a week, and we held each other accountable. I think there was 8 of us in the original group. Very first year out of the gate, we won Accountability Group of the Year out of almost 500 IT providers that are in that part of Robin's group. It was amazing the results that we had as a group and individually inside of our business. Most of us had pretty much double-digit gains across the board, not only in MRR, in profitability, but just the whole mindset of how we ran our businesses dramatically changed. And for me, I think that community that I've been a part of for the last few years has been invaluable to me. So if I'm going to give one thing that you can take away from here, again, I can recommend Robin from personal experience, but find a coaching, find a mastermind group, find something that you can be a part of to hold yourself accountable. That for me was the game changer decision that I made in running my MSP for 10 years. So now I'm going to get into talking about a few things, the 7 lessons. I was actually, as I had time to reflect on this, I left the company that I sold to back in December, and I actually took some time off, my first vacation in 10 years. And I had time to really reflect on the things that I learned over that 10-year period. And it's hard for me to boil them down, but I'm going to give you the 7 things that I think are most beneficial. I talked a little bit about Mike. I met Mike Michalowicz back in 2013. I believe it was in July of 2013. He's actually a friend of mine now. This is one of the quotes that I got from the book, his book, The Pumpkin Plan. Business is not a popularity contest. Don't worry about having the most clients. Build a business that caters to the best clients. Now, I had to really stop and think about that for a second. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're running your business, that's the way it has to be. And I think we all get caught into that thing that we need more clients and we just need to keep adding clients no matter what. But I think that was the wrong track, and I'm going to share some things with you that allowed me to refocus and change that so that I lived this motto here, that I wanted to have the best clients. It wasn't for me about having the most clients in the market. Let's see if that advance. All right. So now I'm going to share the 7 things I learned. And again, these are just the things that I learned inside my business, and hopefully you can take away at least one of the 7, or just something that I hope will be a game changer for you. The first thing that I did, and again, it goes back a ways. When I started Producers Club, one of the things that I learned from Robin was she always talked about finding niches, having specific people that we did business with so that we got to know who they were. And I started to study our own clientele and to look at them with that light of being very specific as to who we did business with. And I started to look at some of the commonalities that we had with our client base. So we actually decided back in 2012 that we were only going to focus on 2 verticals. for me, we looked at our client base. We had a lot of folks that were in the multifamily housing. Most people on the call today have no idea what that even is. I would not have known what that was had I not had the clients. Multifamily housing are they're apartment owners and people who run apartment communities, management companies. But for me, just that terminology right there, I knew what that was, and I was able to really escalate that niche and exploit that niche here in our market because I knew it well. We had a lot of clients that were in the multifamily space, and one of the first managed service clients that we actually had was the apartment association here. That's where we started. And the apartment association was basically, pretty much like every other IT association that we belong to. They represented the multifamily housing market here, and they educated them, provided those things that those folks needed to be able to run their businesses effectively. So I got to understand that market very well, so we started to branch out and do the things that were very specific to that market and targeting our message to that market. Because up to that point, I was basically, doing what most people do. You do the buckshot marketing, where you just blast your marketing out to anybody and everybody. Unfortunately, you're not going to have enough money to really gain any traction doing that. And most small providers, you just aren't. And when I came to that realization that I now knew who we were going to market to, we now were able to create a very specific message to them. That's when I had the light bulb moment for me. I finally was able to stop wasting my money and solve the big hairy problem that the multifamily housing space had. And then obviously word began to spread. We started to pick up other multifamily housing clients. Second branch, the second niche we went after were attorneys. And again, that just kind of started where we picked up an attorney office a few years ago and doing the exact same thing. We started to look at how can we solve the big hairy problem for attorneys' offices. And we created that very specific message that was targeted to the problems that attorneys wanted to be able to solve. So we now had a targeted message, a solution, and imagine that we were now gaining traction because we were able to solve those problems better than anybody else in the market. So if you look at your client base, and we could probably spend, probably 2 or 3 hours on each of these points, but find a niche and own it. That would be the first thing to make you the most effective is niche your business. And a lot of people are hesitant to do that. I was the same too. I'm not saying that you only have to, we didn't have other clients. I had, architect's office, we had other clients, but the bulk of our clients, all of our marketing effort went to those 2 specific niche markets.
So Andrew, this is Ted. Just a quick question. I mean, did you do anything with the clients that didn't fit, the niche strategy once it gelled? I mean, did you, fire them or deliver them off to another provider, or what did you do in terms of, narrowing the focus on those other?
I'll get to some of that in the third point, I believe it is, but essentially what I made the decision that we weren't going to take on any more clients outside that vertical market unless it was, we didn't have anybody that was, a slam dunk, $5,000-$10,000 a month MRR type scenario. So I made the decision we weren't going to do anything outside of those 2 verticals. And for me, there was plenty here in the market. We were able to go after those. And again, we were able to fire some clients, and I'll get to the that point here momentarily. But essentially, that's kind of what we did. We weeded those off. There's some different strategies for being able to fire clients, but we did do that as well.
Great.
Second, let's go back one. Yeah, that is lesson 3. So the second thing that I find that is probably one of the most difficult for pretty much any entrepreneur is the ability to sell. I hear it a lot that I really don't like to sell. I think we all have that bad connotation of, kind of a used car salesman, where we view selling as a dirty word, as something to be shied away from, that we feel that if we're selling, we're talking somebody in, or we're talking somebody into something that they don't need, or we're twisting somebody's arm and, basically playing head games, mind games, whatever you want to call it. I think most people have a bad connotation when they hear the word selling. And to be quite frank, I just think that if you can't sell as an entrepreneur, you're going to have an extremely hard time. Mastering that ability to sell yourself and to sell the reason you got in business. You got in business to provide the best service, the best whatever to your market. And selling, for me, it's not a dirty word. And I think the problem is most salespeople aren't trained, and most companies view them as a necessary evil. Ergo, that's what you get. Pretty much most companies, if you can fog a mirror, you can sell something for us. So I think that kind of leads to that connotation, that bad taste that people have in their mouth about salespeople. But I go, all the way back to age 8 when I started my first business selling chocolate candy out of our house. You had to have the ability to sell, and for me that was fun. I always loved being able to sell something, provide a good or a service, because for me nothing really happens until you sell something. To me, selling is just providing a solution to somebody's problem at a price that they think is fair. There's no coercion involved. I have something you want, you're willing to pay what I'm asking, that's sales. I don't think there's, any mind games or head games or anything that has to go on. And there's so much out there that teaches us how to sell properly. And that was one of the other things, again, going back to, Robin Robbins' group is learning how to sell. And I remember that one of the first trips that we made to Nashville, that's when it dawned on me what type of business I was actually running. I wasn't running an IT company. We're a sales organization. My main goal as an entrepreneur, as the owner of the company, was to run sales. We were a sales organization, and it was my duty, my responsibility to provide the solution to people's problems at a fair price. And again, that to me is the essence of sales. But one of the things that I see in the market, and I've seen in consulting now, is one, everybody's afraid of it, and I don't think that there's enough documented process around it. Everybody wants documented, repeatable sales, but we don't go back and really put a process around it. And that's one of the first things that I did back in 2012. That's the first thing that I went after was, okay, how do I get repeatable sales? And that was where having a documented process of instead of just winging it, which was let's face it, that's what most of us do as entrepreneurs. We wing it and hope for the best. So I went about documenting that process. That was the first thing that I did, was documenting the process. I created a track inside ConnectWise. That way, every time a lead came in, it followed the exact same system and process inside of ConnectWise, where I knew what the next step was. I knew what I was supposed to be doing. And again, that was another light bulb moment for me, because I started to get consistent sales, and it was because I was following that repeatable process. So, just to recap there, if you have a hard time selling, I think there's enough resources out there to get better at it. And again, join a mastermind group, get a business coach, take a class. I think as an entrepreneur, you need to be a student of selling. And for me, that's really, it's a game changer when you get comfortable with it. And when you get comfortable with the fact that I mean, Zig Ziglar said it best, selling is just a transfer of feelings. I have something that I believe with all my heart that I think is the best solution for someone's problems, and, you know, that to me, that's selling. So let's jump to number 3. I'm going to touch on your point now, Ted, on firing clients. This isn't something, again, that I came up with all on my own, and a lot of people are probably cringing when they're reading this slide right now. But I got the concept, you know, right out of the Pumpkin Plan, and I don't have it with me. I don't know what chapter it is, so you know, I'll talk a little bit about, you know, what we did in firing clients, and it seems counterintuitive. And when you're trying to grow a business, when you're trying to scale, to fire clients, and a lot of people are, again, probably cringing right now, and they probably are relying on every dollar like I was just to keep the lights on. And when you figure out how to niche and how to get very specific, you will find, as Ted said, you'll find that clients just don't fit. And I had clients that, I'm telling, every time the phone rang, every time I saw a ticket come in, every time my text would deal with them, I mean, I would literally cringe. My day was ruined. My blood would boil. And I know we all have clients like that. I know we all have clients that are just in absolute exhaustion across the board. But reading through the Pumpkin Plan, this was one of the hardest things that I went about doing, because it is difficult, you know, those clients that we work so hard to get. But I found that when I had a large company that was about $3,600 a month in MRR. But yeah, every time the owner would call, he would text me on Sunday mornings because he couldn't get on Facebook, on a Wi-Fi in a podunk hotel somewhere in the middle of the United States, and it was now my problem to fix. And he was just exhausting, very rude. He was one of those clients that I think we all have them. They don't take your advice. They haggle over every penny. Every time you give them a solution, this guy had 10-year-old Windows XP computers, same thing. Never listened, was always just an absolute ton of extra work. But when I figured out that made the decision that this guy had to go, I can't tell you how much better I slept that night. And that's when I knew I was on to something, that I now, instead of spending all that time, effort, and energy on somebody who clearly wasn't right for us, I now had the time to spend on our better clients, because he was sucking the life out of us. Every time you say yes to somebody like that, you're saying no to the clients that you actually love doing business with. And one of the other things in developing that mindset for being able to select the proper clients and being able to get rid of the clients was having what Mike calls in the Pumpkin Plan, having immutable laws is what he calls them. I call them our rules of engagement. That basically is you go through, there's an assessment chart, and I don't know whether I sent that to you, Ted, but there's an assessment chart that we ran through our clients. And amazingly enough, it dawned on me where you go through this, it's just a simple Excel spreadsheet, and you go through and grade your clients. And amazingly enough, I found that our top selling clients aren't necessarily our best clients. They didn't get the top grades. But one of the things that you grade your clients are immutable laws. And when we started to run through our rules of engagement, how we did business internally, it became very clear which clients had to go. And one of our immutable laws was, no drama, and being positive, being the best. And we found that, we had clients that just didn't fit that bill. But by getting rid of those clients, I now was able to focus all my effort and attention back on, I'll cover that in a minute, on our best clients. And I can't tell you how much better off I was. It was a very difficult thing to do. I think it was more difficult in my own head to get that concept. But I think if once you know your niche business, you have your rules of engagement, your immutable laws, whatever you want to call them, that being able to select the proper clients to grow your company becomes a lot easier. See if we get this to work. All right. Any questions so far, Ted?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I don't want to bore people to death.
No. I mean, I think there's a, Jerry has kind of a practical question on the topic of sell. He says, what were the best ways? I mean, what were tactically speaking, what were some of the things you started doing in terms of selling that moved you well beyond word of mouth?
Amazingly enough, when you start with the niche, one of the things that I started doing is creating content for them. Whether that's a free report that was specific to the multifamily, solving a problem for them. I started involving myself in some of their quarterly meetings. I spoke at a few of their general meetings on, I think we did one on social media. You become the expert in the industry to them, and that for me worked better than anything else. We would hold, I would say, getting involved in their events and being able to solve problems for them. The other thing that worked best for us were our own lunch and learns, in-person lunch and learns that we held at our office. We tried to do one of those per quarter, and you bring all of those folks into you're able to sell to an entire room all at the same time. It makes finding leads that much easier when they're all sitting in the room at one time, and they're all raising their hands wanting to do business with you.
Right. I guess to me the big takeaway is, maybe I would put that maybe more in the marketing bucket, but once you've got that vertical focus, then you're able to really go deeper on the content and really have conversations that are highly relevant to those two verticals or niches that you identified, which is the multifamily and the attorneys. I mean, that's, to me, one thing I often notice is if partners don't have a vertical strategy, they're not able to go deep on the conversation. They kind of stay up at the technical level of what XYZ, software or tech product does. And that's not what most prospects care about. They care about their business problems, and you want to be having a conversation around the unique business problems that they're having in their industry. And you're only able to do that if you've got a focus.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, as you mentioned, you're stuck talking about the tech stuff, and people could care less. I mean, they really could. They could care less about the technology. If it's not solving a business problem for them, you're just another tech guy. And being able to sell, it's all going to boil down to one thing, and it's price. And when you're able to have those different conversations, like you mentioned, that's really when the light bulb came on for me. Was when you're standing in front of a room, and again, it's you're selling in front of the room. I'm able to sell to multiple people all at once instead of sending out mailers, and I'm able to get and close sales much faster when those people are contacting me, because you're now having that business conversation, as you mentioned. I mean, one of the things we did with the multifamily folks, let's see, it was probably back in 2011. One of the things that I noticed in talking with a lot of the members was they all were trying to find new property management software, which is essentially like our ConnectWise, the back-end software to run their businesses. And when I started hearing that from multiple people, and even folks who weren't our clients, when I would go to the general meeting events where I didn't even speak at them, I would just go to network, and light bulb moment for me was, okay, well, how do I solve that problem for everybody, including people that aren't my clients, and make the association look good? Because that's what they were a client of ours, but their main impetus of why they're in business is to provide maximum value for their membership base. So what I did is I went to the director of the apartment association and I let her know, this is what I'm hearing. This is the things that I think is a hot topic right now with your members is how do I go about choosing the right property management software? I mean, because it was across the gamut, how the pricing on this thing. It went anywhere from a couple $1,000 all the way up to $100,000. And, you know, when you're talking that kind of money, people are scared to death as, you know, because you can't afford to make the wrong decision there. I think we've all heard that before. So what I did is I arranged through the apartment association to hold basically a panel discussion with all the software vendors. I contacted all the software vendors and had them send a rep for kind of a panel discussion for them to talk about the ins and outs of their software, and all I did was moderate it. I had a list of questions that I asked them, had them answer the questions, and deal directly with the folks that were sitting in the audience. And just by doing things like that, I was able to close two accounts. And I didn't have to sell anything.
Right. I mean, I think the amazing thing to me, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, the thing that's huge to me is that, you know, the whole idea of focusing on a niche or a vertical and then just going in listening mode, you know, going to their shows and just putting up your radar and opening your ears and just listening to what the big problems are, that's a huge, you know, revolution, I think, for a lot of MSPs, is to really go in and spend the time, intentional time of just getting those customer insights, you know, really finding out what their root cause problems are, and then you're able to turn that around and produce content, meaningful, valuable content, which then turns you into a magnet because you are perceived as the expert, right, by bringing valuable content to the audience.
Exactly. And I can't tell you how much easier sales went after that. You know, when you go in and have those initial meetings with people who are reaching out to you, there's really no closing there. I mean, it's just, here's what your problems are. Here's how I think you need to solve them. And my close is, do you want my help solving them?
Right. So it just ups the level of trust. So before we move on to the next topic here, number 4, David does ask some practical questions around the whole topic of firing rotten clients. Is, you know, how do you actually notify the rotten client you're firing them, and what do you do with them? Do you send them to a different provider? I mean, how does that work in practice with some of the rotten clients that you had to fire?
There's 4 different strategies that are in the pumpkin plan. And again, I don't make a dime for, I don't want to make it seem like I'm, pitching Mike's book and I'm making money off of it. But yeah, there's 4 different strategies for being able to get rid of rotten clients in his book. The easiest one, the one that worked the most effectively for us, is raise your prices. That's essentially what I did with that large client is, I knew the PIA factor, he's a pain in the ass, and I had to account for that in our business. And by doing that, he opted out and chose a different route himself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to go through. That's one of them. Deprioritizing them, was another strategy in Mike's book. Trying to think of the other ones off the top of my head. That's the strategy that I implemented for the ones that we ended up firing, and there really wasn't any type of confrontation per se. His contract came up for renewal, the contracts came up for renewal with others, and we told them what the new pricing was. And, they self-selected, said that, they were going to find a new provider. Right. Let's see if I can pull that up. I'll give you the others. I don't have it with me right now, but yeah, there's other methods. He actually gives 4 different methods for being able to prune your vine and then just trim back on the clients. Let's see here. Yeah, I can't find it off top. But yeah, I mean, if you pick up the book, I believe it's in chapter 5. he talks about the different strategies that actually, when you go through the process. And, I'm not inviting people to call up their clients or send them a letter telling them they're fired. Obviously, that creates other problems. There's much more involved in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big aha here is it doesn't need. I mean, you've got to be a little bit dramatic when providing this coaching to people because it's such an alien concept, getting rid of clients. But it doesn't need to be I think the big aha here is it doesn't need to be an unpleasant experience. It's that people who are a pain have a lot of really hard to track costs, and the only way to recapture those costs is to raise prices. And oftentimes they can't make a rational decision because they don't know what a big pain they are themselves, and so they see a higher price, and so they'll walk away. And so it doesn't really need to be a confrontational or ugly situation. It's just, serve the people you want to serve at a premium price, at the right price, and stop serving people you shouldn't be serving, especially at low prices.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and going back, I mean, there were some that just weren't priced right for me. And, when you're starting out and you're adding anybody who'll write you a check as a client, okay, let's face it, we don't necessarily have the pricing that we should have. And when you raise the price to where it should be to account for the level of services that these clients want and expect, some of them won't choose to opt in on that. So,
okay, let's tackle number 4.
The fourth one for is ruthless productivity. We all know how tough our days are. I already talked about the constant stream of distractions that we have from emails, phone calls, instant message, throw in the social media, all the other things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. Our day starts with a full box of emails in our inbox. It ends with an inbox just as full, and I was no different. And trying to manage that and being ruthlessly productive every day. That was a very, very difficult thing to get my head around. I'm going to give just 3 things that worked for me, and you have to be ruthless with your time. That's where I came up with this slide here, and that's tough to do as entrepreneurs because we want to be nice to everybody. We want everybody to like us, but unfortunately, you got to learn to say no, and you got to say no to distractions, and there's so much that can distract us from being able to do a good job. 3 things that worked for me, and again, some of it was Robin, some of it was the other books that I read, was having the 3 most important tasks I had to do every day. And those are what I did first. When I got up in the morning, I think most of us, that routine. What's the first thing that you reach for in the morning? You reach for your phone, start checking email, start checking social media. I stopped doing that. I stopped looking at those things first off. I think it was Brendan Burchard. He actually gave statistics on it that you're 30 to 40% less productive every day if that's the first thing that you're doing every day. If the first thing you do in the morning is check emails. So I wanted to see if that was true, and I can 100% say that that's true. When I stopped doing that, and I had the 3 most important tasks I had to work on, and I did those first before I fired up email and started checking emails. When I got those things done every day, that's when I started to see a dramatic increase in my ability to be productive every day. And that's very tough to do because I think, checking emails like crack. I mean, let's face it, we just are trained to do that. I have a 10-year-old now, and getting him to turn that device off is, you would think you were killing him. So that's the second one for me, was to stop the distractions. I turned off all the notifications on every device I had, every laptop I had. When you turn on your phone, even if you turn the little dings and the notifications off for text messages and Facebook and all of that stuff, you turn them all off and focus on the things that you need to be working on very first in the morning. And I actually have had a few people reach out to me, and tell me that exact thing, that when they started doing that, it was a dramatic change to how their day went. Third thing is I started doing was batch processing. A lot of people have read 4-Hour Workweek. That's actually where that concept initially came to me, was in Tim Ferriss's book. Where he talks about batch processing, only checking email, responding to emails, social media updates, phone calls, and everything else we have to do, and batch processing those less important tasks every day. So I started doing those at 11 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And in between that, I did the things that were most important to drive my business. And those menial things that you can batch process were done during those periods of time. That will dramatically increase how your day goes, and you'll be able to simplify and declutter most of your life if you do that. I know we're running out of time here, so the fifth thing, a lot of people know they should do this, but I think this is one of the ones that most people don't. I don't think most people use ConnectWise or whatever PSA tool we use ConnectWise. I still actually do. If you want consistency in your life, everything needs to have a process around it, and it needs to be systematized. This was probably, I just did a podcast with Mike McAllowitz a few weeks ago, and for me, this is the thing that he pulled out to being the most valuable in his business. And if you want repeatable results inside your business, and you want to stop being a one-man band and having to do everything, you have to document and systematize everything that you do. I had everything in my head like most entrepreneurs do. Everything was there, and I knew how things should be done. But unless you get that down into documented, repeatable systems that somebody else can do, you will always be stuck doing everything. And you won't have, the money, time, efficiency, or control of your life if you don't have those things. And I think the thing that stops most people from doing this is, okay, let's face it, if you're in business for a few years, having to go back and recreate systems and document everything, there's nothing exciting about doing that, and it's a very daunting thing to do. I look at it, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So, just break off something inside your business that's a severe pain point to you and start there. I already mentioned I started with our sales process. I knew I needed to get better clients and increase revenue so that we could purge and prune the vine and get rid of some of the ones that didn't fit. And that's how I did it, is having that repeatable, documented system inside of ConnectWise. And we were able to get better clients and weed the ones out that didn't fit. So, my advice here is just to start with one process. There's a lot of processes inside your business and a lot of things that we have in our heads. And, if you want consistency and you want control, this has to be done. And this is a large part of what I'm doing with a lot of MSPs right now. It's just figuring out how to go about doing this, and really get into the execution of working on your business every day. And this is how you do it. Being able to hand things off. Yep, go ahead.
Just a quick one. I mean, Jerry wants to know, this is kind of related to process, but also ruthless productivity. But Jerry just wants to know, do you use a paper-based or electronic system to track and prioritize your to-dos every day, those top 3 to-dos? Do you have a system, and how you would attack those or document them or track them?
I for one, most people work their to-do list is their inbox, and for me, I don't use Outlook first thing in the morning. I don't even open it. I actually use a little online app called Trello, Trello. And again, I'm not pitching these. This is just something that I've used for the last 4 or 5 years. That's where my most important tasks are. I know when I come in, you'll see kind of how it works, and we could do a kind of a class on that, but that's where I do my brain dumps, the things that I have to do. I have one column that's just my inbox, if you will. Those are all the things that I know need done, and then I have one column there that are my most important tasks, and those are the things that I do every day as I start out. Those are the things that are going to drive my business forward the most every day when I come in.
Great.
So yeah, it's kind of software based for me. To avoid distraction, I use Trello. I have it on my phone. It's just get ideas and things out of my head, and that's where again I do I just brain dump the ideas, and if it's not something that has to be tackled right now, that's where I can come back and revisit. It's free. I think they've got apps on most platforms as well. So hopefully that answers Jerry's question.
Great.
All right. Number 6, I've already talked about. Number 6 again is one of those real obvious ones. You would think it would be obvious. But when you're working with clients that are a pain in the butt and they're sucking the life out of you, it's real hard to do number 6. But that's kind of why I did this in the order that I did. Was once you go through, you find the niche, you find the people that you want to do business with, you find the ones that fit your rules of engagement, and you get rid of the ones that don't fit. You'll be so surprised how much time that you have to focus on your top clients. And once you're out of the overextended mindset of playing whack-a-mole all day, being able to cater everything that you do every day to your top clients gets much easier. Your mission really is to do everything that you can to obliterate what people can and won't do, other IT providers, and find creative ways of solving problems for your top clients. And that doesn't have to be IT related. I added a service to our managed services where, we went to the cell phone store for the CEOs. That was part of became a big gripe. Nobody wanted to go to AT&T and get a phone or do an update. So we started doing those things. And when you take yourself out of being able to solve problems for your top clients and give them the special treatment that they deserve, you will have raving fans for life. Because even after I've sold my business, I still have those people that I service contacting me on a regular basis just to say hi, because I did those things, because I did the things that nobody else was willing to do. I know we're running short on time, so I just want to make sure I cover everything and be respectful. So yeah, that's
no problem.
Again,
let's just keep trucking. We got questions coming in. We'll just go a little over the hour with more questions, but keep going. So.
All right, perfect. Yeah, and that's once I get out of the mindset, again, of having to please everybody and trying to take everybody on as a client, having the right customer, that's the cure to everything, really. And that's what I found is that, the clients that we had at the end, that's what made it attractive whenever it came time for me to sell my business. Because I had processes and procedures, because I had specific vertical markets, and we had clients that were just an absolute joy to do business with. I had 3 different IT companies wanting to buy into the Columbus market and buy my company because of those things. So, having the raving fans and having people that just absolutely will go to the ends of the earth for you and likewise is huge. And again, having the time to do that is easy to say, but having the time to do that is key. And that's where, number 3, weeding those customers out it's imperative. The last one, run your company like you're going to sell it. This was, in looking back on this, no one thinks about this when they start their business, and I sure as heck didn't. I gave absolutely no thought to selling my business when I first started it, and just a few takeaways that I have on after going through the process of selling my business last year. A few things that I learned in the process of it's an emotional thing, and I was surprised that 2004 was a big year for me. I relaunched Network Logics, and I had my first kid. My son was born in 2004, so it was kind of like, getting rid of your kid, and it was difficult. And looking back on it, and going through all the things that I went through over 10 years, you do those things, you put in the time, effort, energy necessary, and then to finally, kind of walk away from it. One of the realizations that I had is if you're basing your happiness and your life as an entrepreneur on a single event, like selling your company, you're going to be disappointed. But looking back on it, I look back on the journey and the things that I was able to build, create, and learn. That would be my recommendation in on this key point here is enjoy the journey. And the three things that you can do logistically inside your company to be able to sell it are the things I kind of already covered, was building valuation in your company, and doing that by having great clients, having consistent sales process, having documented processes, and having raving fans. That's the hardest thing that people have is, what's my company worth when I go to sell it? And quite frankly, your company's worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And when you have those things in place, and that's how you build value, especially as a small provider, is doing those things, is being able to have those specific vertical markets, having documented procedures and process, and having good clients. That will make you hugely attractive to other IT companies for sure. Having your books and records in order, that was the other thing. And again, these are just, I'm not an accountant, just having everything in place, having, agreements, having, QuickBooks or whatever you're using, have that, all up to date, your revenues and expenses broken out, and having non-solicitation, non-competes with your employees. And then the third one, this is probably the one that I'd recommend to anybody. It's one of those hindsight things that, I didn't do, but I would certainly recommend it looking back, is hire a broker because of how emotional it is. Get somebody else involved in the process, because there's so much personal feelings, whether you see it or not. It needs to be treated for what it is. It's a business transaction. And I think, getting a broker in there to do his or her thing is probably key. But, running your business every day, let's face it, most of us aren't going to have an IPO or on public, so that for me is just running it every day, is just, you're going to sell it one day. And you got to go back and do those things that are hard to do, tough to do. And, so I think that was it for number 7 there. Sorry. So those are the 7 things that I learned. And Michael Jordan, I love Michael Jordan and watched him all growing up. Even Michael Jordan needed a coach. So if you're going to pull away one thing that I've already mentioned is, get a coach, get somebody to help you along the way, join a peer group. There's lots out there. There's HTG, the ConnectWise community, Rob and Robin's community. But that's really the thing that's going to drive you to succeed. And, you're going to fail. You're going to do some things right. You're going to do some things wrong. But having somebody to coach you along the way was hugely important for me. So, any other questions?
Yeah, no, let's just power through the last couple slides here, and then we'll see if there's a handful of questions you come in for the folks who have stuck around a little bit. But let's just wrap up.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so just the 7 things that I learned, finding a niche and owning it, and just, dominating the markets that you're in. The easiest thing to do is go back and look through your client base and figure out the commonalities of the people that you're already doing business with. And then just figure out, how to be the dominant player, the only player in that market that you're in. Second thing is being able to sell. Don't be afraid of selling something. There's lots of things out there to help you sell. So, don't be afraid of it. It's not a dirty word. 3, if you got clients that are a pain in the ass, get rid of them. I know it's, I'm speaking in generalities, but, go through the process of purging, and that's really the only way that you're going to continue to grow is, cutting dead weight. Fourth thing was being ruthlessly productive, and you got to learn to say no, and turn off all the distractions in your life. There's so many things that can distract us, and as a small provider, as an entrepreneur, you've got to be ruthless with your time. The fifth thing was document and systematize everything. There's nothing sexy about this, but it's got to be done if you want to grow and scale and not be the one that's playing whack-a-mole and doing everything all day. You've got to be able to document that, how you do things, and get it out of your head, get it into a system. 6, focusing on your top clients. It's a lot easier to do, again, if you've done a few other things prior to that. And being able to do the things and be willing to go the extra mile and do the things that other people aren't willing to do, that's how you create raving fans for life, and that's exactly what you want. I was fortunate enough, we had a lot of clients that were with us for almost the whole 10 years, and that's why. It's because we were willing to do the things that no one else was willing to do. Run your business like you're going to sell it. I mean, it's an emotional thing. It's a baby when you start it. It's nobody wants to be told that their kid's ugly. So, do the best that you can to have the documented systems, process, the niche, those things that are going to build valuation in your company and make you attractive if you ever do want to sell it. So, couple recommendations on books. Just again, I've talked a bit about The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. If you want to go about building systems and documenting and things like that, a great book for that was Traction by Gino Wickman. And again, I don't make a dime for these. Those are probably 2 of the best books that will help you really with mindset and with document and systems and process and procedure type things inside your business.
Okay, well, let's just wanted to. I think I took 3 pages of notes. I'm sure everybody else on the line has taken a ton of notes as well. Andrew, this has been some great insights. I just want to highlight for everybody. One of Andrew's key messages is sell, 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 but you also need to market alongside selling, and we're going to supply you all with some eFolder, what we call partner playbooks, and these are canned marketing materials that you can use in your day-to-day marketing efforts. You can tailor them to your niches. They're all white label-able marketing materials. You can put your own logo on them. You can use them in your own ways. You have unlimited use rights of all of this content, and we'll send you copies of these playbooks so you can incorporate these into your own marketing and selling strategies. But with that, let's try to just take a couple minutes, like no more than 5, and just answer a couple last questions. Andrew, let's see here. So Arshad says, what about finding good talent to hire? Any comments on the talent topic?
That's probably one of the trickiest ones, and I will tell you this. Ted, you were at Robin's Boot Camp. I probably got more out of the Saturday session with Jeff Smart, and that for me, I wish I had that book. I wish I had read that book, The Who, because that's exactly how I'm going to follow the process of finding people for Orange Nomad. The biggest thing that he talks about is looking for people that are already working for you that you like and finding more of them and building the interview questions, and without giving things, for folks who aren't involved with Producers Club, I would grab the book. I mean, there's things inside that particular book that the interview questions and just going through the process, the hiring process. And I didn't have a hiring process. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit that. And I hired some wrong people. I mean, I made the mistake that everybody did and went out on Monster or Craigslist or whatever like that, and it's a crapshoot. I guess, for me, having a more of a process around that as to how to hire those people, where to find them. I don't really have an answer to give you without knowing, who you have working for you, how many folks you have working for you. But a lot of those, again, it's crapshoot with hiring, recruiters and trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I let me hazard a suggestion. I mean, I think one of the big takeaways that I took from today's talk is, having systems and documenting things. I think one of the big challenges we see with a lot of MSPs is that things are insufficiently documented in terms of process. Things are insufficiently documented in terms of your service offerings and your products and the things you actually sell. And so what that means is you often think you need to hire superstars. You need to hire, miracle workers, because somebody's going to step into this business where none of the standard operating procedures are documented. None of the service offerings are well documented. And, if you just take a salesperson, for instance, you're trying to hire, if it's not well documented in terms of what you offer and it's all in the business owner's head, then you truly do need a miracle worker to come in and sell that. And I think that to me is one of the things that you can take a lot of the sting out of the hiring and talent management problem in these MSP businesses. And one of the ways to more guarantee success is if you have a well-documented business, a intelligent but uninformed person can step into that role and learn the business and do a great job for you. So that to me is one big takeaway on the talent front.
Yeah.
So let's see. I guess if there's let's just end with Daniel's question. So we have somebody who's just started an MSP business. What would you do first? If you kind of thought through all the stuff we shared today, what's the most important thing for a person just starting out to get right?
Ooh, that's a great question. See, most people think they got to jump into sales. I would say is getting involved with a peer group, because you've got other people that have come ahead of you that that know what the pitfalls are, and being able to bounce those ideas off of somebody so that you don't, walk through and step in landmines that you could have easily circumvented had you had a decent network. And I think there's enough networks out there, that you can be a part of. I would start there, and because you want somebody that can help you through that process, that can mentor you through that process, coach you, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, if you're just starting out, I would definitely join some type of, look for some type of group to be a part of, whether that's, CompTIA, HTG, whatever. There's just a bunch of them now that I wish I would have had 10 years ago.
Great.
There's some things that I definitely learned from people over the years that, okay, there's people that have done things good and bad that you can easily learn from. So.
Okay. Well, with that, totally want to second that idea. Get with a peer group. eFolder, we work with all of the good peer groups, people like HTG, Robin Robbins, Gary Pika. There's a ton of them out there. It's all about being with your peers, getting with people who've already made the mistakes, like Andrew mentioned, and having that accountability, somebody who's going to look you in the eye and say, did you get your action items done? Did you get that marketing program launched? That's really critical. So with that, a lot of questions from folks about, copies of today's content and the webinar and the recording. We're going to do all of the above. We recorded today's session. We'll be sending you copies of the slides. We'll be putting the recorded version up on eFolder's YouTube channel. And then we'll also be sending everybody those partner playbooks as an additional benefit for attending today. Andrew, thank you very much for the very informative discussion today.
Thanks for having me, Ted. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me on. Hopefully I'm able to help at least one person. So.
Absolutely. So with that, everybody, thanks for staying an extra couple minutes. Hopefully this was valuable to you guys. Good luck out there. This is Ted Hulsy with the eFolder Partner Chat signing off today. Take care, everybody.